Let's start this off with Corbin Burns going to a surprising team. What the heck is going on with Corbin Burns? He's the best pitcher in free agency this year, but instead, all the other guys have been coming off the board, like Max Fried going to the Yankees, Blake Snell going to the Dodgers. I mean, Luis Severino went to the A's for crying out loud. Frankie Montas went to the Mets. You've had guys going back to their old teams like Nathan Eovaldi, Michael Wacha, Nick Martinez, but here's Corbin Burns still sitting out there in free agency. Now, we all know what you're going to get with Corbin Burns. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. He's a workhorse. He's going to be looking for a fat payday this offseason, especially after Max Fried got an 8-year deal. Him and Scott Boras are looking at each other, probably thinking, well, if he got 8 years, I should at least get 8 years. But the difference is Fried is probably going to end up getting a lower AAV than Corbin Burns. So Burns, he's going to be getting a lot more money. So I'm not sure if teams are going to be willing to go that distance. Now, we have heard the San Francisco Giants be connected with him. At one point, it looked like there was momentum building towards the deal. You know, he grew up in California. He went to college in the Bay Area. So it makes a lot of sense. He has a home in Arizona too. So I could definitely see the Giants being a fit. It would be a great 1-2 punch with Burns and Webb at the top of the rotation. But, you know, the Giants, will they want to go that distance, giving him that, big of a contract? A team that would be willing to give him a big contract would be the Toronto Blue Jays. They're trying to make upgrades any way they can, but does he want to go to Toronto? Their outlook is looking a little murky. Vlad Jr., they have been talking an extension, but are they going to get something done? And if he's going to end up going elsewhere in free agency, is Corbin Burns going to want to be with the Blue Jays long term? I'm not so sure about that. And getting back to the Orioles, I think it makes so much sense for the Orioles to bring him back. He was so good for them this past year. They have so much money to play with. They got new ownership. They're in a competitive window now with all this young talent. I don't know. It seems like, at least as of right now, they're not really in that mix. Maybe they're just hanging around, but they brought in Tomoyuki Sagano. So I don't know. Are they willing to give the big contract for Corbin Burns? So I'm starting to wonder here, is he going to end up going the Blake Snell route last year, where Boras ended up getting him a 3-year deal with the Giants with the opt-out? Ended up working out, right? He opted out after this year, and then he just went to the Dodgers on the 5-year deal. So that worked out. Maybe Corbin Burns ends up doing something similar the longer this plays out. And I got one team in mind here. I wonder if maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks could be a surprise team for Corbin Burns, right? You think about Corbin Burns, he has a home in Arizona. So if he ends up taking, a short deal with an opt-out, why not just go back to your home state? And when it comes to the Diamondbacks, when you think of the way they've spent over the years, anytime they've spent big, it's always for pitching, right? Even go back way back when they signed Randy Johnson, right? But if you want to go a bit more recent, right? Zach Greinke, they signed him to the big deal. They brought in Eduardo Rodriguez, Jordan Montgomery last year. Don't forget about Madison Bumgarner. So I don't know. I wonder if maybe the Diamondbacks could be hanging around here thinking, you know what, if he takes a short year deal, maybe he'll want to be close to home and he can go back out into free agency next year. So I'm going to say, look out for the Diamondbacks, right? Look what they did last year with Jordan Montgomery. They came out of nowhere for him. I mean, obviously that didn't work out, but they did it last year. No one saw the Diamondbacks picking up Jordan Montgomery. Maybe they could do the same thing here with Corbin Burns. Up next, could the Twins make some blockbuster trades? Jeff Passan put out an article on ESPN recently, and he had a couple of juicy tidbits in here. One being where he talked about how Luis Castillo has been dangled by the Mariners in trade talks, but he has a no-trade clause. But then he mentions Carlos Correa, who's owed $128 million over the next 4 years of his deal. But he also mentions that the Twins have been listening on right-hander Pablo Lopez. When it comes to Carlos Correa, Pablo Lopez, why would the Twins want to move these guys? They're very good. Well, when it comes to the Twins, you got to remember, they've been having TV revenue issues over the last couple of years. These guys are making a lot of money, so it could make some sense for the Twins to at least look into some possible deals. Now, Carlos Baerga reported a few weeks ago that the Twins were listening on Correa, but then the Twins came out and said, no, we're very happy with Carlos Correa. However, you got to think from the Twins' point of view, they don't want to make this guy grumpy, especially if they ended up not moving him. So yeah, they got to come out and say something like that with their star player. Now, when it comes to Pablo Lopez, I do think it's more likely he ends up getting moved. When you take a look at the remaining money left on his deal, not bad, right? A little over $60 million, right around $65 million over the next 3 years. That's pretty decent compared to what these guys are getting paid. With the Twins, sure, maybe they could be looking to clear a little bit of payroll, but I also think the Twins would want to stay competitive too. So I would think with someone like Lopez, who does hold a lot of value, that could bring back someone that could help them at the major league level, right? As of right now, you got Willie Castro in the DH spot, but he's a utility guy. He can move around. He can do some things. He can get in the lineup in many different ways. Now, I think for the DH spot, they need to keep that open for Byron Buxton. This guy has a lot of injuries every single year. Honestly, I think he should be the full-time DH, in my opinion. I think just get him out of the field. That's just me, though. But that could also be just a rotating spot for Buxton, Larnach, Wallner. Maybe the Orioles, they got someone like Heston Kjerstad, who is looking for playing time. You could center a package around him. When it comes to Carlos Correa, yes, he is making a lot of money, but Correa is a really good player. Now, he did miss a lot of time this past year, but he put up a 4.3 Fangraph wins above replacement in basically half a season. That is tremendous. This guy, when healthy, is a star. He would be a great addition for a lot of teams out there. Now, if you're looking for teams that could use a shortstop, now Mookie Betts on the Dodgers has been mentioned as the shortstop for next year. But if you bring Correa, I know Dodger fans, you're not going to be happy about that. I know Correa, the trash cans, whatever. But if you're looking to add some talent, maybe Correa could be an option here. The Dodgers, they don't care about the money. Or if not the Dodgers, maybe you got a team like the Braves, right? Orlando Arcia, that bat has just completely gone over the last year or so. You could use an upgrade there offensively. Or maybe with Carlos Correa, you go back to where he was going to sign with the Mets, he was going to play third base for them. Francisco Lindor is the shortstop. Correa was willing to move over to third base. So maybe you could see a situation, maybe the Yankees could get involved. They could use something at third base. They did it with Alex Rodriguez years back. Why not Carlos Correa? I think that would be amazing for them. That would give them a great bat in this lineup. Again, you can get back to the Mets, right? I'll bring them up again. Maybe we could get a reunion. They were this close at one point. They could use an upgrade at third base. Brett Beatty hasn't been able to figure it out. I think that could be pretty fun. Why not roll it back? Probably not, because they didn't like the medicals. But either way, these two guys, I think, maybe we could see something. I think something more likely for Lopez, because there's just going to be a bigger market and has the smaller contract. Correa is just making a lot of money, had the health issues with the foot this past year, so I feel like he ends up staying. But Lopez, sure, why not? Speaking of the Mets in third base, could Alex Bregman go to the Mets? Now, when it comes to Alex Bregman, we all know what he can do. He's one of the more consistent players in the game, usually right around a 4 to a 4.5 wins above replacement player over the last few years, coming off another solid season with the Astros at 260, a 315 on base, a 453 on the slugging, a 118 WRC plus, 26 homers, plays great defense at third base. Also open to playing some second base as well. Could play shortstop in a pinch if you need him to. Bregman is a very solid player, would be a great addition for a lot of teams out there. Now, when it comes to the teams that have been involved with Bregman, now that the Astros have gotten Isaac Paredes as well as Christian Walker, he's probably not going back there. So the teams that seem to be in the mix right now are the Red Sox. Alex Cora has talked highly of him in recent weeks. Rafael Devers is not a good defensive third baseman, so you could definitely use an upgrade there. If not, you could put him at second base. You got some young guys coming up like Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, so that could block some things there. But if you needed him to play second base until those guys are ready, then yeah, Bregman could make a lot of sense for the Red Sox in a lot of ways. His bat would fit Fenway Park great. He's always hit well there. If not the Red Sox, maybe you got the Tigers, a young team that could use a veteran. Now, as of right now, you got Jace Young at third base, but the defense has not been good with him, so there's a big question mark there. Bregman would definitely be a solid option moving forward, and again, a good veteran leader for this team that I think they need. Now, the Blue Jays, they're trying to just get anyone to take their money at this point. If they could figure something out with Vlad Jr. Pretty quickly here, maybe in the next week or so on an extension, maybe that could tempt Bregman to go there. They need something at third base. You got Ernie Clement projected there. Bregman would definitely be a great option for the Blue Jays. But if neither of these teams, why not the Mets? I mean, listen, you got Brett Beatty at third. I've already mentioned that. He has not been able to figure it out at the major league level. But you're probably thinking here, well, Robbie, Mark Vientos is going to be our third baseman because Pete Alonso is definitely coming back. Well, I don't know. Is he going to be coming back, right? David Stearns, you got to think with Stearns, this guy looks for value. Now, with Pete Alonso, his numbers have been regressing a little bit over the last few years. He was a 2-win player this past year. So if he's looking for more than what David Stearns thinks he's worth, then maybe with Stearns, he could look at someone like Alex Bregman and think, you know what? I'd rather give more money to this guy because he's been able to put up great numbers over the years, while Pete Alonso, his numbers have been dipping a little bit despite, putting up, great power. He's a fan favorite. You just got to think of that way with David Stearns. That's how he thinks. That's how he operates in the front office. So I could maybe see a situation where the Mets look at Alex Bregman. I think it really just comes down to, are they going to be able to come to terms on the right deal for both sides? With Pete Alonso, we'll just have to wait and see. But again, I'm looking at these three teams, the Red Sox, the Tigers, the Blue Jays, but don't be surprised if maybe the Mets come out on top. Speaking of Vlad Jr. and the Blue Jays, could they actually trade him this offseason? Now, as of late, the Blue Jays have been trying to work on an extension with Vlad, according to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. He says here, the Blue Jays are in talks with Guerrero about a long-term extension that would buy him out of his final year of arbitration and free agency. He also mentions they are fielding interest in Bo Bichette as well. But let's talk about Vlad coming off a great year. Hit 323, a 396 on base, a 544 on the slugging, a 165 WRC plus, 30 homers. He's only just about to turn 26 years old. And there is another guy out there at 26 years old that just got the richest contract ever in Juan Soto, $765 million with the Mets. Now, Vlad, he's probably looking at that thinking, man, I want to go get a fat payday too. I'm going to go to free agency. Now, when it comes to the Blue Jays, could they get an extension done? Sure, but I don't think they can be cute about it. I think they need to give a big offer to him. I think something in the $500 million range. Will he accept it? We'll see. But he has expressed a desire in the past to stay with the Blue Jays long term. Who knows what that thinking is now? But I think for the Blue Jays, they're going to have to offer him something very big to convince him to stay, because he knows he's going to get himself a good deal out there. Teams are going to be frothing at the mouth looking to add a bat like that that's about to go into his prime. So do they have a shot to keep him around? I think they do, but they're going to have to offer him something big. Now, if they can't figure something out, I think you could see the Blue Jays look towards what the Red Sox did with Mookie Betts, what the Padres did with Juan Soto as they were going into their walk years. They moved them, before they got to free agency, got value back while they still could. I think the Blue Jays could do something similar. They do want to compete. You saw the same thing with the Padres, though, last year with Juan Soto. They still wanted to compete, and they still moved him before the season started. So I think you could see a possibility that the Blue Jays, if they can't get something done, they could move Vlad. Now, when it comes to his trade value, it's right around $17 million for the median on baseball trade values right now. You might be thinking, man, that's a little low, don't you think? Well, when it comes to his salary for this coming year, he's going to be making $30 million this coming year. That is a pretty penny right there. Now, with Vlad, you got to remember he is a first baseman, which is a low value position. Yes, the bat is amazing, but you got to think from the positional value, that's going to bring it down a notch. But still, either way, I still think the Blue Jays are going to get a lot for him. And I think there are some teams out there that would love to bring someone like him in. Now, the Mariners, they've been trying to look for a bat any way they can. His right-handed bat at that picture-friendly park would be just such a perfect fit, in my opinion. I can see the Mariners maybe looking to get something done there. Could you maybe see the Cubbies get involved, right? You got Michael Busch at first. Maybe they could do something with Nico Horner in some kind of a trade. Busch can move over to second, and then you got Vlad at first. I mean, hey, maybe even the Mets. Maybe they could do something here. We talked about Pete Alonso, maybe Alex Bregman. Well, why not just move Mark Vientos to first and then make a trade for Vlad Jr.? I'm just saying. Could you imagine Vlad Jr., Juan Soto in the same lineup? Oh, just disgusting. When it comes to Bo Bichette, that's going to be a bit of a different scenario, right? He's coming off a very down year, injury-riddled year. The numbers were not good. It was just a wash of a year for Bo Bichette. But he has a good track record, and I think, the fact that he plays shortstop, that holds value in itself, too. I could see teams being interested. Now, of course, we mentioned the Dodgers earlier. That's been a popular landing spot for Bo Bichette in mock trades. That could work. short, you could have him play short, or Mookie plays short, one of them plays second, whatever it may be. Maybe the Atlanta Braves, we mentioned them earlier, that's been a popular landing spot as well. If they can get the bat back on track, then maybe you could do something there. Maybe you could do some kind of a trade where you send Orlando Arcia back to the Blue Jays. I don't know, whatever it may be. And maybe even a funky team like the Rays, right? You got Taylor Walls, where great defense, but the bat, it's just not really there. Bo Bichette, if they get him back on track, that could be a pretty fun fit. Either way, though, all eyes are going to be on Vlad here and the Blue Jays to see if they can get an extension done. If they don't, I would look out for a possible trade. And last but not least, could Roki Sasaki sign with the Chicago White Sox? I know what you're thinking, Robbie. You've completely lost it. You're crazy. There's no way he's going to sign with the Chicago White Sox. They just lost like 800 games this past year. But hear me out, okay? Hear me out. First and foremost, they do have a meeting with Roki Sasaki, which is more than what the Phillies can say, because they're not even expecting to have a meeting with Roki Sasaki, despite all the success they've had in the last couple of years, all the good talent they have over there in Philly. So the White Sox, they do got that going for them. But now the teams that I think are going to be the most likely, the Dodgers, of course, right? Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, World Series championship. They're always competing for World Series each and every year. They got a lot of money, right? Good player development over there. So yeah, the Dodgers, obvious favorite here. There's also the Padres, right? There has been talks from his agent saying that he could be open to going to a small to a mid-market team. The Padres fit more of that mid-market mold, and AJ Preller has been hot on his heels for a while now. They have good talent here in San Diego, and he has a close friend and mentor in Yu Darvish there, so I could see the Padres being in the mix. The Mariners as well, being on the West Coast. You had Ichiro for years, but they do great with their pitching development. They basically have a homegrown rotation here, so I feel like one of these three teams could be a fit. But again, getting back to the White Sox here, I know it sounds crazy, but getting back to the small to mid-market thing, if Roki Sasaki values a place to go where he can just focus on his development, then why not a team like the White Sox, where no one's going to be paying attention to them anyway? I mean, sure, you get a little bit of media there to obviously cover him, but, a team that is in clear rebuild mode as of right now, so he could really focus on his development there. And when you think of the White Sox, when it comes to pitching development, they have done a pretty solid job over the years. They have one of the top prospects in the game, Noah Schultz. I mean, this guy is going to be absolutely nasty. He gets comparisons to Randy Johnson. So, they've done very well with him. Someone like Jairo Iriarte, who they got back in the Dylan Cease trade, he pitched pretty well this past year. Someone like Mason Adams pitched pretty well this past year, right? Guys like Grant Taylor in this system. And, go back to guys that they've developed over the last few years here. Garrett Crochet, who they did just trade. Remember, they drafted him out of Tennessee. They put him right into the major league level. They thought he was going to be able to handle it, and they got that right. He was completely fine, and they converted him from a reliever to a starter, so they got that argument going for him. And don't forget about Dylan Cease. Obviously he did very well with them for years and years. So I'm just saying, but there's also one more argument. Remember Tadahito Iguchi on the White Sox back in 2005. He was their second baseman, winning a World Series with them that year. He was with the Chiba Lot Marines back in 2021 and 2022. He was Roki Sasaki's manager, and he still has very strong connections with the White Sox. He goes to their spring training a lot. So listen, I know White Sox probably not going to happen. It would be crazy. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen in the end. I think he'll end up going to the Dodgers, Padres, maybe the Mariners, something like that. But hey, that would be pretty crazy. But everyone, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below on what I've talked about here in this video. What are some other crazy scenarios that you could see playing out this offseason? Maybe some scenarios that we're not even thinking about. Let me know down below in the comments. But everyone, that's all I got for right now. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.